everyone. My name is Nicole. I'm the community manager at Moneymentals, which is a personal finance course that is online. You take it with a group of people, which is motivating and exciting. And the best thing I think about it is that it has been designed, and you've been using this system with your client for years, right? With Michael Goldman, who is a certified financial planner.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. So this is great because this is coming out of literally years of experience, right? Working with a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot of the system I kind of developed for my own use, and then been teaching it to clients for several years now, and it's a good approach. It's not the only one, but I find it works really very well with folks.
Right. So if you're at the point where maybe you're not quite ready to sit down and meet with someone like Michael, but you want to get your finances in order and maybe have a way to interact with someone like Michael as you do so, this is a really great way to do that. So you can go to moneymentals.com and you can learn more. But today, Michael, we're here to answer somebody's question. Are you ready to answer
I'm ready.
Random finance question? I like that you're always up for these random questions. Okay. Dear Michael, I want to have a credit card to help build credit and maybe get some airline miles and points. But I've heard conflicting things about credit cards and how many, if any, I should have. What do most financially savvy people do with credit cards? I think we get this. Like, some people tell us not to have any credit cards because they're evil, and some people are like, oh, this is how you get points and transfer them to other things. I never.
I'm kind of somewhere in the middle on that. So I actually do think that in this day and age, you do need to have one credit card. And the perfect example of why you need a credit card, I was actually just talking with a client last week, and he was running into this problem because his daughter had gone to college. Her roommates had a death in the family, and they wanted to go to the funeral and needed to rent a car. And they both have debit cards, but neither of them have credit cards. And it's not possible to rent a car without a credit card. They won't use a debit card. So it's good to have one credit card for things like that. Mm-hmm. It is also, I think, there is some value in building a credit history. Of course, that assumes that you use the credit card wisely and build positive credit history, which is not the same as maxing it out and passing the balance around between various offers on a regular basis. So there is some point in having a credit card, and I think it's good to have one. I think it's also good to have one for emergencies, and just to have a line of credit if there's really an emergency. Mm-hmm. That said, I don't think that it's necessary to use a credit card very often, and there are quite a lot of downsides to using it. A lot of research shows that when you pay for things with credit, you tend to spend more and more frequently. Also, the reason that every retail store wants you to get their store card and that they'll give you 0% interest for a period of time for doing that, or give it to you for free, is because they know that if you have a credit card with their store, you have a tendency to go back there more often than somewhere else. I haven't seen the research on it, but I suspect there's some truth to that with even online cards, like an Amazon credit card or something like that. And the same thing goes for all of the points. If you think about why are they giving you points, it's all because it helps with the credit card company's profits. Why? Again, the more that they can encourage you to use the card, the more they know psychologically, it's very consistent, people spend more and therefore they make more money. And then also, even people that are intending not to carry a balance on the card, if you get them using it out of habit, sooner or later there will probably be some period of time where they don't pay the credit card off all in full, and then they get to collect that really high rate of interest on those balances.
Mm-hmm.
So credit card companies are not dumb. They're actually very, very smart, and they are incentivizing you to make them more money, which, let's face it, isn't really good for you. So even though it's really tempting to say, oh, I'm going to put everything on the credit card so I can get the most airline points or whatever, really you're not doing yourself a favor. You're actually probably spending a lot more than you would otherwise, and you just don't realize it. I mean, you think, oh, I would have bought this stuff anyway. Yeah, you might have, but you might not have spent quite as much. So I'm not a huge credit card fan. I think they're necessary, but I don't think you should use them for your regular spending. Instead, and what we teach in the Moneymentals system is I think it's much better to carry debit cards. And in particular, with the Moneymentals system, you're carrying debit cards that are tied to bank accounts that only have a limited amount of money in them, namely how much money you have in your allowance essentially for the month. Goes into your spend account. What's nice about that is as you give them that plastic at the store, you actually see the balance go down in your spend account, which helps you monitor the fact that I don't have an unlimited amount of money to spend, and maybe I might have to make a different choice this month if I'm getting toward the end of the month and there ain't much money left in that spend account. It kind of gives a sense of scarcity, which is good. On the other hand, a credit card doesn't say no until it's maxed out and you've hit the limit, which is usually way beyond the amount you could really afford to spend. And so there's really no tempering effect that you get out of handing the credit card. So I think it's good to have credit cards. I don't think you should fall for the, get maximum points kind of strategy. Put your groceries and your gas and everything else on it, because ultimately you're going to end up paying more, far, far more than the benefit you're going to get from the points.
So you're saying the super rich people that you work with, they don't have like 10 credit cards and do all this fancy shuffling around with them?
That's a fair question. For my, I don't know if I have super rich clients, but for my high income clients, I do have those.
There you go.
I do tell them the same thing. A lot of them, not a lot of them, but some of them do regularly use a credit card for their all their normal expenses, and then they pay it off every month. And they say, I like to do that because I get the points or whatever. And it's fine. Look, they're high income. It's as long as they're doing a good job saving, it'll all work out in the long run. But the truth of the matter is even those people, because they are human too, and maybe even especially those people because they're high income, probably spend more by virtue of using the credit card that way than they would if they said, you know what, I'm going to keep my spending even at $10,000 a month or $15,000 a month and put it on a debit card so that I am aware of when I'm exceeding whatever I can afford to spend. So I'm not saying nobody uses them that way. I'm just saying I don't think it's the best way to do it.
Right. Well, there's the amount of mental energy it takes to sort of like remember to shuffle things around and whatever that I think can't, should be be part of how you think about it. And something like, that my friends will say, like, sometimes people just have cash flow issues. So like they have a bill that's come due, but their paycheck is coming next week or something. Yeah. And so like I have a line of credit at my local bank.
Yep.
And to me, I think I pay like 4% on what I borrow for the time period I borrow it for.
Mm-hmm. So
if I borrow a few $100 for like 4 days, I might pay $10 to do that or something like that. And it's a lot better than a 25% or more interest on a credit card. And it took me, it was like a 5-minute it was like a 1-page application to get that.
I think that's a perfectly good stopgap measure until you've actually managed to accumulate a true emergency fund.
Yeah.
Because if the goal is ultimately to have enough cash cushion in the bank that if there's an emergency or a cash flow crunch, you've got enough cash to cover that. And you can pay yourself back just as easily as paying the line of credit back.
No, that's really true.
But it takes time to accumulate an emergency fund. I mean, usually what I recommend is at least 3 months worth of expenses. Well, that can sometimes take a year or more to accumulate. And so in the meantime, I think doing the line of credit strategy you're talking about, as you said, at least the interest rate is lower than a credit card. But it is still essentially credit. You are paying interest for it.
Yep, that makes total sense. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your help today, Michael.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and for those of you who want to know more information and see some of the other resources that Michael has available, you can just go to moneymentals.com.
All right. Thanks, everybody.